Welcome back to Spirit Squared. I'm Andrew Darington, your host. Tonight we come to you from my bar here in Lindale, Texas. It's great to be home. This is our third podcast here and looking forward to a great conversation tonight. Before we get started, we'll talk a little bit about our sponsors. We've got the Humidor, the Vault, Red Construction. We've got Rex Consulting. We've got Ray Plunkett, who's a great sponsor of ours. And then we've got Hoot and Holler Package Store. If you guys need anything for the weekend, drive down to Gun Barrel City. They're going to give you better service than you're going to get in any of the box stores here. And they're going to take care of you. It's worth the drive. Just go down there and do it. Before I introduce you, we'll talk a little bit about what we're having tonight. Having a little bit of my grandpa's liquid here. E.H. Taylor small batch for you guys that have listened to the podcast previously. I'm related to T.H. Taylor, which is a cool little feature. This is a small batch, which is kind of my favorite. It's fall. It's got a lot of cinnamon notes to it, and I enjoy that a lot. Kim, what do you have?
So I love the Taylors, but I don't love the bourbon. So I have Prosecco, Lamarck Prosecco. Thank you to brother for purchasing that for me.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have my sister on tonight, which is super cool. And we have our parents sitting right next to us, which is, they thought it was going to be like nerve-wracking. It's not nerve-wracking. Trust me, I've been a part of Dad's conversations and behind closed doors. That was nerve-wracking. So this is not even close to that. So my guest is my sister, Miss Kim Darington-Theodus, who is the Dean of Allied Health and Nursing at Louisiana Delta
Community College. Yep.
Community College.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for finally having me. It's been a year. It took a year.
I understand that, and you're already throwing blows, so appreciate that. So what was it like growing up? I mean, did you come from a battered home?
Yeah, so did you. Can't you tell we're both just abused children?
Right.
No, it was, I think we had a wonderful upbringing.
Don't look at
them. No, it was great. It was just me and Drew. Of course, he's my only brother, only sibling, right?
Yep.
So it's just us
that
two.
we know of.
Good point.
Yes.
So we had a mom who was a teacher, and so she set a great example of education in our lives from a young age.
Yep.
And then of course our dad worked really, really hard at the railroad, and so we had a good role model of that too. So I think we had two strong role models of hard work and the work ethic that both of us probably demonstrate in different ways today.
No doubt.
And I had a big brother who picked on me all the time.
Yeah.
Which that's what
harden you up.
Yeah, we're 2 years apart, so that comes with the territory.
And polar opposites at that time, right? When we were
now
growing
not
up,
so much, but then, yes.
Yeah, for sure. The older we get, closer we get to kind of the same
It's like
being individual. You're smarter and just more goofy, which I kind of always was in that role. So just kind of speed ahead a little bit, and we'll talk a lot about kind of how you got to where you're at. So I was selected to go to this function, and at that function they took us through like these different exercises to try to kind of get us grounded to who we were. And the exercises kind of had you breathing in a lot, and it just kind of added a lot of extra oxygen to your brain. And so they were asking a lot of questions like, hey, do you remember this? And you walk through this window and stuff like that, and why you are who you are. And I've never told the story out loud, but one of the images I saw was we were in New Orleans, and we were at our Doolin Oaks house, and we were fairly young then.
Yeah, we were probably 6 and 8 maybe or something.
And you were riding your bike, and you tried to go on the road, and I grabbed the bike, and I got really mad at you. But I saved you from going in the road. And that's what I remembered. And it kind of brought me back to that role of being a mentor and bringing, a leader or manager of some, even though I was kind of real mad, I was still, there was a caring piece of things. You're administrator now, but you were a teacher for a long time. But that's not where your path or your you didn't want to do that initially.
Right.
What were some of the things that kind of pushed you to teach, be in education, and stuff like that?
Yeah. What's funny is your story is very typical of older siblings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I think naturally older siblings take that responsibility role, and my
Mm-hmm.
son, who's 18, does the similar things.
Right.
So I think, you know, you gravitate towards that based on, you know, your order of birth. But anyway, so I didn't really know. I started college and I thought I wasn't going to be a teacher, first of all. Like, that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
Because, you know, I just didn't think that was going to be my calling. And I started in nursing school. I wanted to help people, nurturing, caring, help people. And so I was accepted, started nursing school, super interesting, but it was the emotional side of nursing that was very challenging for me, because it was real funny, because it's like all of a sudden, like, I realized sick people aren't always happy people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult to navigate the emotions in healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
especially those on the front line. So those nurses out there, hats off to you for what you do
Yeah.
every single day. And so, so I switched majors. So I wanted more of the.
And it was quick, right? It was
Yeah.
like-
It was like one quarter, but I was in nursing school. I had the white hat and the scrubs and the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, maybe there's something different still in healthcare, because it was so interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe the administrative side of it. And so that's what I ended up focusing on. And I remember being in college, and one of my mentors, Angela Kennedy, she was the program director at the time at Louisiana Tech, and she sat me down. We were advising for the next quarter, and she said, "What do you want to do? What do you want to be?" And I'm 19, sassy, think I know everything.
Sure.
I said, "I want your job."
Mm.
She still reminds me of that to this day.
Yeah.
To this day,
Right.
and she'll come up in some stories later. But that's what I told her. So I was 19 and an undergraduate in this health information management program, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in higher education. So from a 19-year-old, that was my goal. And so that's sort of my nature, is that's my goal. So what do I need to do to get there? And she said, well, you need to graduate from this program,
Right.
and you need to leave this university. So don't get your master's here. Go somewhere else. Get your master's. Get some experience, and then come back.
Right.
So that's how I ended up. That's what I always wanted to do.
So during Louisiana Tech times,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going through school, just trying to get your prerequisites,
Mm-hmm.
get out of college. You finish in 2002.
Correct.
Yeah.
Remember, I lived with you for a summer
Yes.
while I was doing my practical.
Which was wild.
That was fun.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't go to many classes during that time. And then by the time 2002 rolls around, you're going to get your master's, and I'm getting married.
Correct.
Yeah, which
I moved to
a lot of different priorities shifting there. So you go to UNO.
University of New Orleans,
Yep.
in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
And at that time, our parents had moved to New Orleans.
Oh, so you're moving back in.
So I'm moving back in with the parents. This time as a 21-year-old in New Orleans.
Right.
So it was a great time. But the thing was, the program that I was in New Orleans was a night program.
Yeah.
So I went to school at night, 5 to 8 o'clock in the evenings. So during the day, I had time to get a full-time job.
Right.
So I was able to do the same things that Angela Kennedy told me.
Yeah.
You got to get some experience, and you have to, get a master's degree. So that's what I did, but I did it at the same time.
You did some regional and like administrative work back then.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you could you can juggle a master's program and do
Right.
full-time job.
I didn't have
and
any
kinda-
kids, and I
Right.
had a great time in New Orleans, and it's different when you move in with your parents as a 21-year-old than it was when you were 18 or 19
Sure.
and going to college and
Fighting for independence. It's like, I'm just trying to plow through this.
That's
2
right.
years.
So it was a lot different. I had a wonderful time. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you finish there. You go back to tech.
Well,
Right?
yeah, right. So I had said put the bug in the ear. That's a great idea, right? You put the bug in the ear of the person that is in charge. And it just so happened that I was going to move back to North Louisiana anyway to get married. And she called me and said, I think we're going to have a position open as an assistant professor. This was at Louisiana Tech.
Yep.
And I said, Are you sure I'm ready for this? Like, I'm only 23. I just graduated, but I
Right.
had 2 years of experience in the industry. under my belt? She said, absolutely, you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I moved back to North Louisiana, got married in that May, and then started that job in September.
Right. So you're at Tech.
Mm-hmm.
You're there for a long time.
12 years.
12 years.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, you get promoted,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get tenured as well.
Correct.
And what does that process sound like? So assistant to associate. Obviously, I'm sure there's some pay changes.
Yeah.
But
Not as much as you would think.
What does it mean in order for you to be tenured?
So tenure is unique to academia.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. That's the only place you see it. And so there are certain positions in a university and in some community colleges that are tenure eligible
Mm-hmm.
and others that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be an instructor position that isn't eligible for tenure.
Right.
But then there's usually it's the assistant, the associate professors, that rank that qualify for tenure.
Mm-hmm.
And so tenure is when you basically it's normally a 6-year period to prove yourself.
Okay.
And to build your resume and to excel in 3 categories normally. So it's teaching, of course, that's in a college, you have instruction of courses. It's research, so that's publications and presentations and
Right.
grant writing.
Yeah.
And then there's service. So service to the community, service to the university or the college, service to the department through advising or recruiting, service to the profession through service on committees outside, external, but in your niche of, for me, it was healthcare and health information management. So being part of those associations that serve the profession, right? So those are the 3 kind of buckets. And so you just work your tail off in those 3 buckets and you try to meet certain benchmarks.
Yeah.
And after 6 years, you put together a portfolio that hopefully has demonstrated to your peers that you've met their expectations.
And your peers vote on?
Absolutely. There's
Okay.
a committee and they vote on it, and you're either granted tenure or you're not granted tenure. And in most institutions, if you're not granted tenure, you're given 1 year and then you have to find another job.
Right.
So, being granted tenure is good. So what happens when you're tenured, right? Like, okay, I'm tenured.
You get a 3rd week of vacation.
Right. You get more work. No.
Right.
Yeah, you get to be on the committee for the next guy, right?
Right.
Which is not true. But anyway, so what happens is due process. So if ever they eliminate your program,
Yeah.
or there's a reduction of budget, tenured folks go last.
Gotcha.
So it's due process. If they ever want to terminate a tenured employee, there's certain steps they have to go through.
More protected status.
Absolutely.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep. So 6 years. I did the full 6 years, and then sometimes your promotion timeline is the same. So tenure and promotion are at the same time.
Yeah.
So after 6 years, you've proven yourself. You have this beefed up resume, curriculum vitae, whatever you want to call
Right.
it, and then you send that through for both tenure and promotion.
Gotcha.
Right? So the committee considers you for both. Some people get tenured, not promoted, right? But if it's like tenure is one thing and then
Right.
promotion's a whole other thing. So, but most people go up at the same time.
Tenure's more important than the promotion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could be tenured and then maybe they don't promote you and then you can go up, go up later. for
Is
a promotion.
assistant and associate, is there a big gap in the way people look at
Not really. Most
yeah.
students don't even know.
Yeah,
Students
right.
have no idea.
Right.
Your colleagues are the ones that know.
Right.
So
So they're just looking at
people
it
in
from,
academia. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically you've been voted by your peers
Correct.
to promote. That's
Uh-huh.
it.
Yeah.
Just like tenure.
And there's a pay raise, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's astronomical, but it is something. Yeah.
Okay. So you're at Louisiana Tech for a while. We'll get into the grants and all the good stuff as far as some of the things that you checked off your list through the tenure process and promotion process. But you make a tough decision to make a transition after many years, and you went to school there.
Right.
And you live pretty close to there too,
Right.
just outside the foothills of Louisiana Tech, to migrate to ULM,
Right.
which is my alma mater, and is about 30 minutes away, 30-minute drive,
Right.
which I know can be log jammed many
Right.
mornings. Some mornings when you run out of gas on the way to school, which I've done with you in the car.
With me in the car.
Yes.
We had to push.
Yeah, well, we had somebody to pull us, I think. But it's a hassle.
Yeah.
Was what I'm
Yeah,
getting at.
right.
So I know that was a tough decision. There was a lot of things to weigh out. I don't want to get into that part, but
The Humidor is your online cigar retailing headquarters. Our experienced staff has spent years finding some of the best cigars from around the world to sell to our customers. If you're looking for an online cigar store that can help you find your next favorite smoke, welcome to The Humidor. We began The Humidor because of our deep appreciation of the finer things in life, a good conversation with friends, an aged whiskey, and, of course, a fine smoke. That's why, in addition to selling premium cigars online, we also operate a brick-and-mortar cigar lounge in Tyler, Texas. Our lounge is crafted to provide a classic ambience with modern sensibilities, and we've spent time ensuring that smokers and non-smokers have an enjoyable experience, whether they're there for a drink with friends or to enjoy the game.
Hey podcast listeners, are you in need of some top-notch libations to elevate your next gathering? Look no further than Hoot and Holler Liquor Store in Gun Barrel City, your go-to liquor store for quality drinks. From smooth bourbons to crisp wines and everything in between, Hoot and Holler has one of the largest and most diverse selections in East Texas. Planning a special occasion? Let our experts guide you to the perfect bottle. You'll receive excellent customer service not offered in the big box chains. Visit Hoot and Holler today and let the good times flow.
Vault Arms is your premier destination for all things firearms. Extensive selection of handguns, rifles, shotguns, and accessories. Knowledgeable staff to assist you in finding the perfect firearm to fit your needs. State-of-the-art gun range equipped with the latest technology for a safe and thrilling shooting experience. Take advantage of our professional shooting instruction and training programs suitable for all skill levels. Host your next group outing, corporate event, or bachelor party at our spacious and secure shooting facility. Committed to promoting responsible gun ownership and firearm safety. Fully licensed and compliant with all state and federal regulations.
Overall, like, what would you say? Just some of the small or the big picture things were that got you
going from one to another.
There. Yeah.
So first of all, ULM is University of Louisiana Monroe,
right? Which
when Drew went there,
yes,
it was Northeast Louisiana University.
Thank you for reminding everybody.
I have to shout out to both of those.
Yes. For sure.
So ULM gave me a new opportunity, and I was ready for a new challenge. You teach the same courses. I think people don't realize that. Like, you teach the same courses, and yes, you update it and you change it, but after 12 years, it was like I was just ready for a new challenge. And yes, it wasn't the most convenient, with the travel, but my kids were a little older at that time, and it was a great opportunity. Also, at ULM, it was a different kind of program. So at Tech, it was a health information management, so every professor sort of had the same training. At ULM, it was health studies, and so health studies is a little more broad. So think, rather than just health information management, it was more of like healthcare management. So it's more leadership and research and law and a lot of the different components of marketing and management of healthcare. So it wasn't just as limited. So I was unique, right? I had this unique training that was very specific to certain courses that I was an expert in.
Right.
So that feels good, right? To be acknowledged and recognized and celebrated for your unique expertise. And so it gave me that opportunity.
Right.
And it was a good change for me. I enjoyed ULM. They treated me well. I went through the tenure process again, because that's one thing. When you give up tenure, you give up tenure. When you leave that institution, you leave your tenure. Yeah. And so although I was already tenured at Tech, so they did give me a shortened tenure time, tenure track, I guess you would call it, at ULM. So instead of 6 years, it was 3.
Right.
So
was that pre-negotiated?
Yeah, that was part of my negotiations. But the good thing is they did give me some credit, I guess you would call it, for what I'd done already.
Yeah,
I already had built up some things on my resume that would count.
Yeah.
And so, or carry over, maybe. Yeah. So 3 years go by at ULM, and I did the same process. Tenure, promoted after 3 years at ULM.
Yeah.
In similar roles, doing the same kind of things, advising, teaching courses, online, on campus, graduate, undergraduate, a little bit of everything. And so it was a great change for me at the time, and I was there for 8 years.
Right.
I spent 8 years.
Yeah, so like a typical big brother, I forget an important part of your life. You get your doctorate before you leave Tech.
Yes.
Yeah, so why was it important for you to, other than maybe somebody saying, hey, look, it's important that you do it, or hey, this is checks a box. Why was it important for you to get your doctorate?
Yeah. So
Well, there was a lot of people in your department that didn't have one,
correct.
right?
So remember the 23-year-old that was offered the job and like, I don't know if I qualify for this.
Right.
So part of the contract that I signed when I was 23 and bulletproof and could do anything, right, was that I would pursue and obtain a doctoral level degree in a related field.
So the department really wanted it or needed it.
Yes.
And they needed it probably for grant writing and publications and things like that. So they wanted more notoriety and they wanted you to do it.
Correct.
Got it.
So, but what's interesting in higher education, you normally see PhDs, right? You see a lot of PhDs that write dissertations and they publish those dissertations and they research very specific things. You also see in higher education, you see EDDs, which is Doctorate of Education.
Yeah.
You see very few Juris Doctorates, which is law, like a JD. And so that's the path I decided to take, which is unique. You don't see a lot of people that did do that. And I thought very hard and prayed a lot about what it was that I wanted to spend my time and energy and money. Because by that time, Dad's not paying anymore.
Right.
I'm paying.
Right.
So, it's a huge investment, but it was part of my contract. I had to. And it was funny because I told you about that 6-year timeline.
Yeah.
Well, about 3 years in, my boss comes to me and she said, well, Kim, where are we staying with this doctorate? And I said, oh, you meant I really have to do that?
Yeah.
She said, yes. So I had to go ahead and start. So I started in 2007 and I finished in 2010.
Okay.
So it was about a 3-year
And it was done online mostly?
Yeah. So because I had children at the time, I couldn't, and I was working full time. There was no way for me to do it in a face-to-face traditional kind of classroom format. But it worked out great for me. It was super interesting. It was killer hard.
Yeah.
Glad I don't have to do it again, ever.
Right.
But it's worked out great for me. It's opened a lot of doors that wouldn't have otherwise opened.
Yeah, just going back to ULM, it probably opened up a big door at ULM, not only from a standpoint of what they needed, but also probably negotiating contract, pay, things like that.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And it's recognized as a doctorate, which is what, the highest level of education, that especially in higher education, if you're teaching a master's level student, they want you to have that one additional level. It's funny because whenever people call you Darington-Theodus, it's weird because it's like, you think of doctor as a medical physician. Right. But in higher education, it's very common.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're going to shift gears because we are talking about secondary education.
Yes.
You also did quite a bit of work in adjunct, different companies. DeVry was one of them. Got Southern and Cartnet Word. So talk a little bit about the differences from your perspective, being an educator to those types of institutions.
So it's very common to have part-time or adjunct instructors in all kinds of higher, even at community college level, junior college level, all the way up to universities, because it helps supplement instruction. And so you are 100% focused on instruction.
Right.
There's not all this other buckets, right? It's just that one bucket of instruction. Now those 3 adjunct positions, and I had them at different times throughout my career, but they completely focused on instruction and they were all online.
Right.
And so that's a wonderful opportunity for somebody who maybe works in the industry.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody who maybe is a nurse, or somebody who has extra time on their hands, or somebody who's retired even, who wants to contribute to higher education. There's positions everywhere for these online programs that need somebody that has a lot of experience and then can impart that on the students online. And a lot of it's done asynchronously, so you don't have to be online at a certain time.
Right.
So it's very flexible. That's why I liked it. It was supplemental income.
Right.
Which is always nice. As a faculty member, I wasn't contracted in the summer.
Right.
So I had some extra time on my hands. So it was wonderful for me. And it also introduced me to different methods of instruction because every school does it a little different.
Right.
So I was able to see a private school. Incarnate Word is a private school.
Right.
Right? How they handle their students and their programs. And then public school, Southern University in New Orleans has a whole different type of program and system and how they handle their students. And, so that to me was a good to see the different, like the diversity of the different modalities and the way that we deliver instruction specifically.
Right. Well, did you find there being a gap between students and counseling and advancement and maybe desire, dedication, different things like that?
Yeah, and you can't always predict it, to be honest, but absolutely. And some of it's the way the program's structured, to be honest. Some of it, I think, like the Incarnate Word position, my class was only one, like the rest of them were on campus. So I find if you have a group of students who are like a cohort and they go through all the classes together, they have this bond and they own it. They're engaged. They want to be a group. They want to work
like
together.
Pharmacy students.
Yes, they all work together.
Students.
But if you have just like a disparate group of people who are kind of all over the country, like DeVry, there wasn't like a group of students who were working together. Not that they weren't successful, they just have to do it on their own,
right?
Which is a lot more challenging.
Do you find that students were maybe different stages of life,
Absolutely.
walks of life?
Yes.
Maybe they were taking online courses because other personal challenges, things like that.
I found out with the Southern students that they all have so much, especially today, and all learners really today are dealing with full-time jobs and bills and mortgages and kids and family, there's a lot. And so they're balancing all that. So they may not get to their homework till the weekends.
Right.
So they don't email you till Sunday.
Right.
And that's, that's your job.
Yeah, for sure. So we touched on it a little bit. So you've got traditional 4-year university, you've got community colleges, you have VOTEX. There's a lot to consider, and that's what we want to peel the onion back. So talk to us a little bit about what you've seen that's different. What's the experience like from a student or from an administrator point of view between those three things?
From the VOTEC versus the university versus
Well, I mean, I don't know how much experience you've had with VOTEX in particular. Like, community college is a little bit different and derives kind of its own thing. Where, to me, like a VOTEC is like, hey, let's put you in a program for 8 months, give you a certificate, and now you can go work under a journeyman or go do something like that. But talk to me a little bit about, I mean, both of us have been in 4-year universities, know what that looks like, look a little bit different for me than you. Probably should have gone to a community college. Probably would have been the same experience, but and probably should have went to a VOTEC.
But the debt would have been a little smaller.
Right. Well, I did some things in college some that I may not be proud of, some that I may be not proud of, and some that I may. Let's just say that standing on a bar sometimes gets the job done.
Hey.
And I was a bartender during the summer. During the summer, I was a bartender. I was I ran for a law firm, and then I worked for a golf course. I had 3 jobs, and my goal at the time, a semester was $2,004. So my goal was to raise $4,008 for the summer, and I did it most summers. But I did have to borrow from Dad once for sure. Had to borrow $800, and I got hit up every week.
He still
about that debt. About that debt, which I never paid back. Which he reminds me of all the time. And that's the only semester that I remember borrowing money from him.
It's expensive.
They did pay for the first semester in full, and that was 12 credit hours, and then the dorm. Because I didn't have a scholarship because I didn't do so hot on my ACTs, and my GPA was lower than what some colleges would want to fork over some money for my education. So they bore that, and I appreciate that.
A lot
for
of parents do.
Yep. And then after that, it was a really crap show for me. I was sleeping in my car. I was staying in dorm rooms. I was going to some classes and some not. So the 4-year university to me wasn't a successful path for me.
Correct.
But I chose to do it because I was socially motivated.
Right.
Let's just call it
Yeah,
that.
right.
So that path for me was not a good path, whereas my high school path was great, even though I did get some detentions and some different things that we went over
Talking
a little
too
bit
much.
earlier.
Talking
Too
too
much,
much. Yeah.
inappropriate language. I mean, it was a little bit of everything.
Are you looking to optimize your drilling rig operations and maximize productivity? Look no further. Rex Consulting is here to power your drilling. With over 20 years of industry experience, our expert team provides tailored solutions that drive efficiency, safety, and profitability. From site assessments to cutting-edge technology integration, Rex Consulting is your trusted partner for land-based and offshore oil and gas drilling solutions. Ready to take your rig to the next level? Contact Rex Consulting today and send your operations to the next level in operational performance. Contact Josh Simmons at 918-637-9181. Rex Consulting, level up.
If you are looking for a reputable builder with a proven track record and a client base to back it up, give Red Construction and Development LLC a call. Red Construction offers full design build services for new construction, custom homes, and remodeling with free site evaluations. They have an A+ rating with the BBB and are proud members of the Tyler Area Builders Association, Texas Association of Builders, National Association of Home Builders, and the Lindale Area Chamber of Commerce. Red Construction and Development LLC stands behind the exceptional quality of their work and have the expertise, the resources, and dedication to deliver the results you need on time and on budget. To learn more, give them a call at 903-630-8660 or visit them online at redconstructiondevelopment.com.
Smattering, we'll call it that.
But that's a great point, because in high school, a lot of our planning in high school is our surroundings, right? Like our families or our friends, or maybe even the high school you go to. So we went to St. Frederick, which was a private school, and the majority of those students were headed to a four-year institution. So It wasn't, are you going to college? It's, which college are you going to?
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
Sure.
And so, look, I've been in higher education for 20 years.
Yep.
And I have seen my fair share of students like Drew Darington, right, who come in and it's just, that's just what I'm going to do. I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. I'm just here. I'm going to pledge the best fraternity there is.
That's right.
And I'm going to live the college life because that's what's expected. And that's great, and it's good if it works out, but it can cost you a lot.
Yeah.
And the return has to be something that is meaningful enough to have a career for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so to your point about workforce and journeyman type programs, I think that's where your community colleges or your junior colleges, I know a lot of Texas institutions are junior colleges, that's where they really shine, is for individuals like that who maybe they don't want to study for 4 years of theory and then go get a master's degree to apply it, right? Maybe they want to learn something in 8 months and go out and make probably more than I make, so there's they could. And so there's opportunities for people everywhere. And I think that's the mantra that we're hearing right now, especially now that I'm at a community college. I'm buying into it. It makes sense for individuals like you, or even my son, who's 18 and I know is not bound for a 4-year college. Now, having said that, I think the 4-year institution serves a very important role, because if you want to be a physician, you have to go that route. If you want to be a professor, you have to go that route.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities for individuals in every way. And I think I've been able to see the whole spectrum of that, which has been, to me, super valuable for me in my personal life as I raise 2 children.
Yeah.
To go into that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going through my notes here because that was a lot to handle. It was a lot. I mean,
it's a lot.
Good, because you like
he's learning things.
You think about decisions, and I think that was a great point where you're just around a lot of successful people, and then you're just motivated to follow and do the same thing, or just kind of like, hey, what are my friends doing? You're just going to do it, but I think that stigma has changed quite a bit, where people are starting to figure it out, and it kind of leads us to the next is talking about how academia compares to education. So, I mean, academia compares to workforce.
Yeah.
So, what have you heard things, saw things? Now, obviously, you're exposed to quite a bit different now because you're in programs that are 2 years, right?
Or less.
Or less, and they're springboard to possibly something else, or they're teaching certifications and they're getting you kind of like ramped up to be prepared for an employer, right?
Yeah.
So is it, you're seeing that now, but you don't really get that in a 4-year. It's more about just like getting a diploma and checking the box and saying, okay,
Right.
I'm fit for this role.
But I think it's coming. Because I think the more employers require certain certifications, and we call them, in the community college world, we call them industry-based certifications, IBCs.
Yeah.
So it's okay, you know, I have a graduate with a 4-year degree in computer science, or I have a graduate with all these industry certifications in all these computer science areas. Like, you know, that type of focus. And so I think it's very successful, these industry-based certifications, because it's focused on the workforce. It's focused on the employers, what they want, what they're expecting, what they're paying for.
Right.
And who's getting hired.
Yeah.
And so I think the community colleges have been set to do that for a while. We don't have as many restrictions, to be honest.
Sure.
We have more flexibility to have certificates where we can focus on workforce and we can change quicker.
Yeah.
A university is like a freight liner.
Yeah.
To try to turn it is like it takes years to change curriculums, to move in different directions. I mean, there's some creative things you can do. So when you're comparing workforce focused education or preparation and a true academics, to me it's lemons and limes. It really is. But I do think it'll overlap a little bit as we continue. Yeah. Right? Like, as these 4-year institutions are like, hey, here's some industry-based certifications we can start folding in. And one interesting thing that they've started focusing on is they call it on-ramps and off-ramps. So we want students to be able to on-ramp. How do they come into our programs? How do they come in? Do they come in as a certificate student and they go out as an associate student, right? Do they come in, or do they come in and just take a few courses and leave with a certificate, right? On-ramps and off-ramps. And that makes it flexible, it makes it affordable, it makes it available for students from different walks of life. Right. You know, you take away some of that.
It makes it a little more valuable to me as a student too. Like, I just come in and do what I got to do and go.
Right. Now, having said that, you have the university or the higher education, true university level higher education. I mean, there's value to that too, to having a well-rounded student who's taken fine arts, they've taken English, and those are skills that you don't know you need until you need them, right?
Yeah, for me, I think as an employer, if I see somebody who has a degree, to me it just means that they dedicated themselves to 4 to 5 years.
Absolutely.
They could have had a lot of different challenges, and they committed themselves to doing it, and they finished it.
That's right.
And so to me, I'm looking at it from a loyalty standpoint and maybe a tenure standpoint to me as an employer.
Right.
So this person gave themselves for 4 years to this curriculum and took the classes and everything. Yeah, and they got through the struggles and finished.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest value to me as somebody who hires people.
Right.
But if I'm an employer who is also accredited and they're looking for tax gains, or they're looking to possibly be able to do certain procedures and be reimbursed for them, whether that's through any kind of insurance or anything like that, you have to have those certifications. You have to check those boxes.
That's right.
And you're fulfilling those roles, whereas maybe a university might, but it's going to be probably an offshoot.
Right. Or it's built in, it's wrapped around.
Yeah.
So you have this umbrella program where this is just a piece of it, but that's going to let you take this certification exam to do XYZ.
Yeah.
So you get it as part of, not just that sole piece. It's different, and like you said, it is an investment,
Sure.
and it's a dedication to know that somebody dove deep and was so dedicated to whatever program it was that they spent their time, energy, money. They did sacrifice, because no matter what you say, I spent 9 years and getting education so I could do what I do, and so it is a sacrifice because I could have used that money and time in other ways.
Right. But I could go through a 4-year college and get a degree in bowling.
Absolutely.
And or social studies, and then you get out and you're like,
You made a D in social studies.
I know, I did. Well, that was a long time ago. Much better now. Much better. I keep up with that now. Much better. A's and B's now.
Yeah.
Occasional C, but that C means degree, so we're
There we
good.
go. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the people that are part of this kind of situation here. Secondary education. Let's start with the students. So if I'm a student and I'm getting ready to graduate, and maybe I think that they ought to be thinking about it in their junior year, maybe the end of their junior year, definitely the summer. So from their perspective, what are some things that I should be thinking about? Or because you're counseling them already, they've already made some decisions.
Yeah.
But what are some things that from a student standpoint you should think about when you're starting to make this critical decision?
Right. That's tough, and they're doing it in high school.
17, 18 years old.
I'm raising an 18-year-old. He's a senior right now, and they started, I'd say sophomore year, they really have to choose in the state of Louisiana. Yeah, in the state of Louisiana, they have to choose if they're going to do a like a tech track, which would still leads to the same diploma, but it's more in line with workforce and could lead to community college and professional development, that type of stuff. Or they pick a university track where it's going to give them all the background and the prerequisites to be able to go to a university. So it's very important throughout. So we start talking about that at younger than when you and I were in high school.
Yeah.
But and then they have different electives that they take, different core that they take in each way. And so some people that are listening may feel that, they may understand that it's a high pressure, and you're like, this kid is only 15.
Right.
He has no idea.
Let him be a kid.
He has no idea what he wants to do. However, I did know, particularly for my son, that it wasn't going to be the university track. It just wasn't something that he was passionate about or he was really that interested in.
Right.
But one good thing is once they choose that track, those counselors are so good at directing those kids. So, for example, there was a summer program that my son was able to do at the local community college that was for heavy equipment, okay, like driving forklifts and skid steers and that kind of stuff. I don't know much about it, but he does because he spent 4 weeks doing it, and he got college credit for it.
Yeah.
And there was a grant program because they have a lot of grant money, and they paid him a stipend. They paid him $1,000 to teach him how to do this. Now, this is the same kid when I would take to the beach and he was pushing the dump truck around and loading the sand.
Yeah, sure.
So it's right up his alley, and he loved every minute of it.
Right.
Now, if I had put him in a psychology course,
right,
would he have loved? So I think you start picking up, and as parents, you have to start thinking about that, and the kids have to start telling you that way earlier. And then you can set those goals. And look, he didn't care about the ACT test. I hate to say that, but he didn't. Yeah. So low pressure, go take it. It doesn't matter. But if you have a university student, then we're investing in studying for that ACT and investing in the ACT prep and working through some of those barriers they may have to test-taking anxiety, test-taking strategies. It's just you have to identify that earlier.
Right.
As the student and the parent. Right?
Yeah.
And of course, students, especially boys, I hate to say this, they tend to take the path of least resistance.
Sure,
right?
Of course.
So, what's the easiest elective for me to take and be able to
graduate with bowling?
Yeah. So maybe that's just my son, but so sometimes you have to look deeper than what it is. They just say, "Oh, I don't want to take honors math because it's hard."
Yeah.
What are their real potential, and then go from there. That's really the best advice I can give when it comes to looking ahead.
Yeah. So from a parent's point of view, you touched on it quite a bit, but what are some key things that you need to be looking for? My student is 17. We all know that that's a pretty immature age for most. Sometimes they're more advanced, and they're maybe cleaning their room a lot more than I did. Maybe they're saving their money better. They already have a job. There's some things to look for, but
responsibilities.
Maybe some other things where you're like, 4-year college isn't going to cut it. You already talked about that. Or maybe, hey, let's start in a junior college and maybe we can have you at home.
Right.
Or, but then you've maybe got a kid that's trying to fight independence. So there's a lot of things to factor in here.
Well, and that's what you're talking about is that maturity. That sometimes everybody, they all mature at different times. It's not like, hey, I'm 18, I'm mature. Because believe me, I have one at home.
Right.
So it's hard as a parent to know, are they going to fully develop and be fully mature and responsible and be able to get themselves up to go to their university classes at 8 a.m. in 3 months? So I think as a parent, there's a couple of things we think about, right? Is the maturity level of your child. Yeah. And you know that better than anybody. Right. 100%. Yeah. And then you think about the financial burden when it comes to higher education in general. Yeah. We all know it's not cheap. Now, when you're looking at a university, of course, you have tuition and fees, which is substantial depending on where you go. You have state institutions, you have private institutions. But then you have to decide, okay, let's say your child's going to go to Louisiana Tech and I live in Ruston. Are they also going to live on campus? Yeah. So you mentioned room and board, right? Yep. So dorms are very expensive. Yep. Usually when you do sign up to live in the dorm or on campus, you have to also purchase a meal plan. Yep. That adds on to that. Books. Yeah. Books are very expensive, and that's every semester, so that's a recurring charge. And so that can really run up your financial burden or financial responsibilities. And if you're at a 4-year institution, you can multiply that by 4. Right. Now, on the flip side of that, the good thing about a community college situation is, like you said, well, let's just get your feet wet. There's not a lot of barriers to get in, meaning admission requirements. You don't have to have a stellar ACT score, or maybe you do. Yeah. And then you can take some courses and see if your student over the next year fully matures and decides they're going to commit themselves to this. And there's nothing to say they can't finish a 2-year program or a certificate program and then continue on. We see that all the time. One of the mottos, I guess you would say, of where I work now is start here, go anywhere. Okay. That speaks to it, right? It does. Right. It says you can start here and you can on-ramp, off-ramp, right? You can get off and go work as a paramedic. Or you can continue on, get your associate degree, and then go get a nursing degree, or go continue on, be a physician. It's a building block, stair-step style, and it's a different style. Yeah, sure. A different approach, one that you and I never considered. Yeah, but to me now, when I work in it, it makes sense for a lot of people. Yeah, it's better functionally. It's going to be efficiency-wise too. Efficient, yeah. Yeah. God, I had a question, a follow-up question. There's just a lot of information coming at me. He's learning a lot about his sister. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I know what it was. So do you think that culture is playing a role in, because so I have a son, he's 24, and of course he had no intention to go to any kind of college, but I think community college and like a technical college is a good avenue for him for sure. But part of that is the fact that I never saw him, other than one friend, develop a long-term friendship, relationship type of thing. And I think that's a cultural thing, because back when we were growing up, and definitely when I was growing up, you had to do a book report, you had to go to the library, you had to check out books, you had to read the book, you had to write things that you thought about the book and stuff like that. That's a heck of a lot of dedication to a project. Right. Now I can Google that and get the answer in 0.38 seconds, right? Which means everything's very fast. Yes. Social media is fast, information's fast, and things change a lot faster too, which makes it hard for me to dedicate myself for 4 years or 6 years or 8 years, because the culture's different, or there's these external influences
Do
I think you
do
make
see
a
that?
great point. Yes, because we have a culture of immediacy. Like we want
Yeah,
to see
100%.
immediate
I
results.
call it the Google age.
Yes. So
It's-
why would we commit 4 years
Right.
and work as a bartender or
Yes.
work as a golf course pro or work as a student worker? I worked as a student worker making $5 an hour. Why would we sacrifice that when my buddy is, just got out of school after 8 months and he's having successes already? in
Yeah,
his life?
welding
So,
at $80,000.
yeah, we're definitely seeing that. I would say 100% we are.
Yeah.
And that is, it's a culture. And then whenever you mention, okay, so we had to go do the book report and do the research. Now we have ChatGPT,
Right.
which that has thrown higher education
Yes.
on its heels.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest with you. Because now, think if you were a professor and you wanted your students to learn about, I don't know, a certain disease,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You would tell them, go research diabetes
Yeah.
or whatever.
For sure.
They go research it and they write a research paper. Now, what do? You pull up ChatGPT. You can literally say,
Write me a
give me a
research
3-page paper
Yep.
or even a marketing plan. You're in a marketing class. Give me a marketing plan for a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Type it. There's your chat. There it is.
Yep.
There it is. So you have to. I think you're going to see higher education have to pivot to where we're no longer just give me this, but let's synthesize the information and be able to figure out what that means and how do we critically evaluate things that are brought to us to see if it's meaningful, if it works, if it doesn't work. That's why I think that you'll see some of those IBCs, those industry-based certifications, and those workforce demands come in. Because that's the way you prove it, right? ChatGPT can do the rest,
Right.
or artificial intelligence, or computers, or Google, or whatever.
Right.
So you have to have other ways to demonstrate that
Sure.
you've mastered it.
Yeah, for sure. And the last is the employer perspective.
Okay.
So from an employer perspective, we talked a little bit about like the industry-based certifications. So that's one way that the employer's going, all right, well, this is what I need from you guys. I know in your current environment, but in prior environments and comparing the environments from an employer standpoint, do you see them lessening more of that 4-year commitment? Are you seeing, I know certain jobs are going to require you to have a master's, have a doctorate. You're going to have, a certain amount of hours that you're going to be on the job where you're going to prove yourself.
Right.
But are we seeing some of those requirements that are, skilled labor and things like that? Are you seeing some of those 4-year requirements ease a little bit?
Yeah. I would say yes, and because of it, I focus on healthcare, and so because healthcare is one of the most regulated industries you're ever going to find, I think you're always going to have a level of requirement for higher ed because it's tied to the licensure.
Yeah.
To be a nurse, to be a occupational therapist, so I live in that world, and so I think this new position I have has sort of opened my eyes to some of the alternatives of that,
Right.
where now it is what is the industry demanding. So I think it depends on the field you're in, to be honest, and I think as society changes, I think that's going to continue to change.
Yeah, agreed.
And as you have graduates come out, maybe of a 4-year institution that don't have skills versus somebody who came through and learned on their own, or had some sort of journeyman situation and learned that way, comparing those two as they go, I think that'll prove to kind of inform that decision of those employers going forward too.
Do you also see some employers go ahead and, hey, let's go ahead and hire this individual and we'll get them certified as they go?
That's what I was just about to say. What
Yeah.
you're not seeing, you're seeing them say, I'll pay for you to go get certified,
Right.
but you're not seeing them say, I'll pay for your 4-year degree.
Right. Yeah.
You're not seeing that as much.
Yeah.
I'm not, maybe other industries are.
Sure.
I'm not seeing it as much where I'll hire you and then I'll invest 4 years in you.
Right.
I'll invest for you to go take this, go to this conference
Yeah.
or go to this intensive boot camp training
Yeah.
where you learn, cybersecurity, whatever it may be. I'll pay for maybe a master's that's focused on whatever this is I need you to do, but they're not funding the full-on theory-based or whatever it may be,
Right.
well-rounded, holistic higher ed degree.
Right. So no fraternities. Yeah. Sorry.
Pi Kappa Alpha.
Yeah.
Kappa Kappa.
Some leadership qualities there.
Yeah, he had the best.
All right, so let's get into the mucky part, is the financial part.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got a lot of different levels of commitment that you have to make financially. Most people know you can borrow money. Supposedly, one of the political candidates thinks that mom and dad should go ahead and put a secondary loan.
That could pay for it.
Yeah, just you put a loan on your house, and that takes the burden off the student, which would never happen for us in any feasible way. How important is it for parents to start thinking about grants and writing essays and finding way, because there's so much money out there.
There's a ton of money out there, and I have to say, when I was
would you I'm not using the word lazy, but would you say that if someone who doesn't have any grants, that makes pretty good grades, that that is something that parents should really focus on? I think the biggest thing that I don't remember it being a big part of what I had available. Maybe I did. I remember there'd be advanced classes, and I was in none of those. But I don't remember there being a lot of college credit classes.
Yeah.
That's something
definitely been a trend that's
kind of new.
Yeah.
And a kid could leave high school as a sophomore.
Absolutely.
Right?
We see it all the time.
And the pricing, because I paid for a couple classes for my son, and are substantially less.
Yes.
Because it's normally like 2 credits, hours, or maybe 3 max if it's something specific. But how important is that part of the financial kind of paradigm?
There's so much that people can take advantage of as a high school student.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, dual enrollment is virtually, even the smallest private school normally has some sort of connection with an institution of higher education, whether it be a university or even community colleges that offer a dual enrollment course. So the course I was talking about that my son took as a heavy equipment thing, it was considered dual enrollment because high school students did it. The next year he did a HVAC course for the whole, and he got college credit. He also got credit as his electives in high school, so he was double dipping there, which is nice. I didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
A lot of those are subsidized by the district, the school district, which is also nice. They do get college credit, and so you're right. There's been several students I saw at a university level. They come in and they're already a sophomore. Now, there's some challenges with that too, because then they come in as an 18-year-old sophomore, and there is just a level of maturity.
Sure.
So you put them in 2,000 and 3,000 level courses that they may not be ready for. Sometimes the rigor, we call it the rigor, the difficulty, the challenging aspect of those courses can be, you take English 101 as a dual enrollment student versus English 101 as a college student. It may require different things, but it's a great opportunity for parents who would rather that and have a whole year, 30 credit hours of coursework already done that they don't have to then pay for. Now, another good thing
which is not now. It's not $2,004 anymore to go to
absolutely not.
Louisiana Monroe.
You mentioned that. I was like $2,004 per semester for a full credit. Full load is
12 credits, and you could go over that. You could go up to 24.
It's more like 5.
5 what?
$5,000.
Oh, that's still pretty affordable.
Yeah, that's
in my
for
opinion.
the same institution. But I mean, it definitely goes up and down, and that's just tuition and fees. That's not books or room and board and
well, that's why I ran for a law firm. You
and
had printers.
Dance on the bar.
You knew somebody that you served a drink, and then maybe you make a copies of
the
chapter.
The tips were good.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, no, but then what I was going to say too, another opportunity just to think about, right? So if you have a student who is a senior in high school, takes some dual enrollment, maybe takes advantage of some of those summer opportunities like I was mentioning, with your local institution that my son did, then they could actually go to the community college and get some of their basic courses. We call them core courses, right? Your English, math, psychology, some of your biologies, they're all the same. In fact, in the state of Louisiana, we have what's called a course matrix, and it lists at every single institute, university, and community college, English 101. So the English 101 here is the same as the English 101 here. It's the same as, so you're going to either pay $1,000 for this, I'm just making that up, $1,000 for this one, $500 for that one.
$250 for this one.
Right. Now, if your college student wants to go and have the college experience, they want to live on the dorms, they want to join the fraternity, they want to have the independence, then maybe it's worth paying that.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have a scholarship or some sort of federal
Yeah, or
Pell
they're playing a
Grant or
sport.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And then do it.
Or they're legacy.
Yes.
And their parents,
I
live in Waco.
love living on campus.
They live in Waco, and they want them
They're
to go
out
to
of
Louisiana
town.
Monroe.
Exactly,
So,
right. Do it, absolutely. I think there's value in that too.
Sure.
Because it helps them grow up and learn how to be independent, how to live with others if there's the only
and
child.
their parents live through them, so they get to come visit.
They get to visit and party
Yeah,
with
for sure.
them and the whole thing. But anyway, so that's another opportunity though, is to take some courses and then you can transfer those courses in. And so you may end up being a junior.
Mhm.
Then you have 2 years of the university level, and then you can really focus on whatever it is, the
Yeah.
major or the degree,
Yeah.
and just get those courses from your university and graduate with a university degree. So there's ways to build the stair step to that, and I think that makes sense for a lot of people too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So before we start talking about like what you're currently doing, your new role,
Yes.
let's talk about some of the we talked earlier about some of the activities you've done, things to check off the box to get tenured, promoted,
The buckets,
all that
right.
kind of thing. As I was reading through your curriculum vitae, whatever.
Resume.
Resume. There were a litany of different presentations that you made, but the ones that stuck out to me were ones that financially benefited the university or the association that you're involved in.
Right.
Is there anything that stands out? Obviously, you're published too,
Right.
a couple different ways, textbook and
Right.
journals and things like that. Is there a couple different projects that you worked on that stand out where you're like, okay, this earmark maybe
Right.
where you stood out, and then later on now you're in this role and
Right. So the 3 buckets, right? Instruction, service, and research. So when part of that service, I said, was professional service to the profession. And so part of my career, I was a member of this association, the American Health Information Management Association. So our national, 100,000 members, that kind of thing. And they have a board of directors. It's a nonprofit, right? So they have a board of directors. And so as part of service, you have to be elected by the membership. They have 12 directors on their board. And so I was elected to that board of directors, and I spent 3 years serving in that way. Well, that's great, right? Because I'm serving the profession.
Sure.
But I'm also bringing back all that national level information, trends, insight
up to
from
date.
all these super smart, great, wonderful, highly experienced people back to the institution where I work and my students.
Yeah.
It really should get down to the students, right? But at the same time, I had to do a lot of traveling, and I did a lot of presentations on behalf of the association. So you see how I'm getting the service bucket, but I'm also given the presentation bucket, the publications and the presentations and the networking part of it. So that was good, because like dual work that I was doing, but it's all free. I was a volunteer, but I think it paid me back in dividends in value as I worked through tenure, but then I also was able to grow my network and then also bring not accolades, but attention, let's call it, to the program that I was representing. And they let me go, because that's part of my job, right? Is to leave and go and present and spread my expertise, and also bring attention to the programs, which is always a good thing. That's why they encourage you to do it, especially for the professional development. And then since then, now I'm on the board of directors for an accreditor. So health information management programs, it's very important to be accredited. So it's like a seal of approval, right? It's showing that your program meets certain standards.
Sure.
And so this accreditation agency also has a board of directors. So this is my 4th year on their board. So I'm the chair-elect. So I'll be the chair of that board next year.
Nice.
And so that's given me a whole nother insight into accreditation and why it's important for these academic programs to go through this pretty specific set of standards that hold us to a higher standard. And it shows students, it shows parents, it shows in the institution that we hold ourselves to this standard.
Yeah, employers too.
Employers, and to your point about employers, a lot of them want to hire a graduate from a program that is accredited in whatever degree it is.
Yeah.
Because it's important. It shows that they've gone through a certain rigorous educational background and process to be able to graduate.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing now. So I love that kind of work because I think it's service and it's a volunteer position, but it pays me back in lots of different ways too.
There one stood out that you did a presentation that led to financial donation of almost $40,000.
Right.
Which was pretty awesome.
Right.
Of course, I'm a numbers person, so that kind of stood out a little bit more to me. But there, I mean, obviously, you've got 9 pages in your front and back of different things you've done, grant writing and all that stuff. It's, I mean, incredible just as it stands. And now we move into a new chapter where you're moving to a deanship.
Right.
Do you call it a deanship?
It's a dean position.
Deanship? Is it called a deanship?
We'll call it that.
Okay, for sure. Dean.
We'll coin that
Deanism. Deanism. We'll call it deanism. And
that sounds weird.
and of a community college, right? And okay,
I know.
it's all how many like
Programs.
no how many structures are we talking about here?
Okay,
as far
so
as institutionally, you have how many remote locations?
Okay,
and
so
stuff
Louisiana
like
Delta Community College, we have a main campus in Monroe, Louisiana, and then we have 8 satellites.
Gotcha.
So we have it all over Northeast Louisiana.
Yep.
And they're all intended to be in rural areas. I mean, there's one in West Monroe, there's one in Ruston. You know, it's all over Northeast Louisiana. But it's really to go out into the community to serve the needs. So they don't have the barrier of transportation from Tallulah, Louisiana, all the way to the Monroe campus.
Sure.
And so, for example, one of the programs that I'm responsible for is practical nursing. So you probably heard of LPNs, okay?
Yep.
And so we have practical nursing at I think we have it at 6 of the 8 campuses. So that removes a lot of barriers from those students who want to be a practical nurse, but maybe they do have families and kids and maybe whatever else going on, so they can do it at their local campus rather than coming all the way to Monroe. So it does it's a challenge to manage individuals that work solely at each of those satellite campuses. But the beauty of it is each one of those campuses has a campus director. So somebody there on site all the time who manage day-to-day functions of all those sites. I know. It's a lot. It's a lot.
So I don't want to get any specifics because it's been a challenge, right? You're coming into a role where nobody was there for a while. Right. And
the position had been open for a while. So I'm the Dean of Allied Health and Nursing, so that includes all of our nursing programs. So we have I'll tell you what programs I'm over. So we have a registered nursing program, right, an Associate of Science in Nursing, which leads to the RN certification or licensure. We have LPN, we have medical assistant, CNA, and then we also have medical laboratory technician, which is an associate degree. We have paramedic, EMT, and we have pharmacy tech. So it can be a lot. You have a lot of different, because it's healthcare, it's all very regulated.
Yeah, for sure.
And all those programs are accredited. So we have, just like I was talking about accreditation and all those standards, we have all those standards in all those different programs.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have to be familiar with every single set of standards, that my faculty meet the requirements, that the students are doing what they're supposed to do, that they're passing their exams.
And you're dealing with people. So people are flawed, so you've got a lot of...
and I'm moving from instruction and working with students, and I took myself completely out of the classroom, which, and that's hard because I was committed to my students for 20 years, and so that has been hard for me to not be face-to-face with the students, although I still feel like I'm representing them, just in a different way. But, so now I'm managing all the faculty and the staff that come under the Allied Health and Nursing arm of the college.
Any home runs or any big wins so
in
far?
The 6 weeks that I've been there?
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of our faculty. I think they are committed to our students and to the mission of the college, and that's something that I've bought into since day one. Even when I was interviewing, I think that's important that they are focused on removing all barriers from students and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
And to me, that means a lot to somebody who just needs a chance.
Yeah.
So I think that's a wonderful thing. As far as personal wins in my position, just learning the ropes of a new position over 6 weeks is fairly. And I walked in and it was an empty desk and here's your computer.
Yeah, a lot of calls to IT. I don't have access to this.
I have a wonderful boss who has been very patient with all my questions, and and the staff and the faculty have been like, okay, yeah, you're new, so we'll guide you through this. And so I think it's all a win. I think it's all a learning experience for me too, and it's helping me grow, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, cool. Well, we have reached the shout out zone, which I like doing, and I briefed you that you should come prepared to a certain degree. So your shout outs, friends, family, mentors, folks that maybe open doors. You already talked about a couple during the podcast.
So shout out to my kids, Ty and Landry, who have put up with me through all of my career ups and downs and the traveling and the commitment to other people's kids, right? The students, but I think they've been champions of mine, and they still are. Of course, Mike, who is with me now, and he's my supporter, and he knows bad days, good days. He knows my potential, and he pushes me that way. Throughout my career, I've had some awesome mentors.
Sure.
I had a boss in New Orleans, Mariella Twiggs, who believed in me when I was 21, and she hired me. Actually, I was probably younger than that, probably 19, and she hired me to be a manager for her business, and she's been my cheerleader throughout. And I kind of always looked up to her. I mentioned Angela, who also was my mentor at Louisiana Tech. And then we'll shout out to the parents who are here too for helping both of us get here. And
for sure.
Hey, we're not fighting.
Yeah.
So there's a win there.
Yeah, we haven't fought in a long time. Earlier this week, maybe.
Yeah, just wait till the camera goes off.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to appreciate. I mean, the fact that we were in a home that was stable for 50 years is the word, there's a lot of words for it, but like privilege comes up for a lot of people, and I it's hard work for our parents to do what they did, and probably hard for them. I've heard some pretty detailed conversations that but I mean, that level of commitment gave us that opportunity. Right. I wouldn't call it a privilege, an opportunity to do more, and we did things a little bit differently, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
where you accelerated in one way, I did another, and now we're kind of merging in the same zone in a lot of different ways. But it's been awesome to have you on. I'm super proud of you, sister.
Thank you.
It's
hey, record that. We got that, right?
Yes. Very different paths, and we've both gone through some serious challenges personally, and professionally, and some tough decisions. But ultimately, I think all for the better. Some of that to me is a little luck. For you, it's more intention. But it is what it is. I mean, we're in this cosmos and trying to make the best of it.
That's
in
right.
my opinion. So
That's right.
Cool. All right. That's another episode of Spirit Squared. Our next guest isn't going to be as good as this guest, in my opinion. We're going to have some comedians on. So some local comedians. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. And appreciate all of our sponsors, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.